of putting together my supposedly carbon fiber frame. I got the main part of the chassis together with the little mounting plate for some sort of small camera. I guess that would probably be for my FPV camera if I wanted to put one in there. I got 3 of the 4 arms put together. Not a problem, went together pretty slick. It looks pretty cool too. I like those red standoffs. One problem I did find was, now keep in mind I'm doing this without instructions because it didn't come with any and I couldn't find any. Nobody that I could find had this on YouTube yet, so I am completely winging this. Anyways, so one of the red standoffs, the thread was kind of bad in it. I wasn't over tightening, I just noticed that the screw wasn't tightening in the threads. So that's kind of a bit of a bummer. And now I'm on to the last one of the arms, and I'm having a hard time getting the screws to fit into these little holes for the standoffs to put the other piece of the arm together. All the other screws slid right in perfectly. Beautiful fit. Maybe the Chinese company must have, I don't know, switched their tooling that day or something, but 7 out of the 8 pieces work beautifully. And this one, as you can see, I'm having to thread these in. So that's just a little side note. It's really not nice. I probably should just use a reamer or a drill bit or something. Actually, I think that's what I'm going to do right now. But yeah, just part of buying Chinese knockoffs, I guess. Well, I guess they all come from China, but this is a knockoff of a better brand or a name brand of some sort. I think it's kind of like a DJI flame wheel or something like that. Actually, I'll show it to you on the computer here. You can see there, this is what I'm working with. Those are my instructions right there, my detailed instructions. So I'm kind of just looking at the picture and keeping my fingers crossed. Anyways, that's the kit that I got. You can see at the bottom, it is called the F1489A DIY RC Multicopter. Yeah, interesting. Anyway, stay tuned for more. All right. So, I want to point out that I'm kind of impressed with the, you can see I've got the motors installed now. Very slick looking. I've gone ahead and done 3 of the 4, but I want to show you. I'm really impressed with the prop hardware. It's pretty cool looking. So you have basically, I guess, like a collet that slides on your prop shaft. Push that all the way down, and then the propellers came with these things. I assumed, like I said before, there's no instructions, so I'm kind of really winging this. And all I did was check and see which one of these fit the prop shaft the best. And then you install that little donut or washer inside the propeller. And you drop, you got this little doodad with the no skip, like the teeth on it. I guess I was assuming, again, like I said, there's no instructions with this thing. So I put that towards the prop, drop that down there. You can see that. So that slides cone over top of the tapered collet. Throw your propeller on there. Oh. And the very fancy little propeller nut. Threads right on down there. Hold the propeller. And everything tightens right up. Now that's locked right on there. Pretty slick how that works. Very impressed so far. Alright, so another snag I have encountered with this build is that it's really strange. The landing gear goes on the outside of the bottom section of the arm. You see that I actually ended up having to take this apart. Again, remember, no instructions. So, and I'm on AliExpress looking and I can't seem to find any third-party instructions or anything really anywhere. So, really am just winging this. Anyways, getting back to my point. So, I had a hard time catching threads for these standoffs for the top section of the chassis. Actually, look at that, I just loosened one right off. So what I ended up doing was taking a, what size drill bit is this? Taking a 15/64, just big enough to countersink the head of these tiny little screws. The pack came with 2 different sizes of screw. Let's see if you'll be able to see them here. You can see the one longer one. That's the one that is intended for going through the landing gear, the bottom section of the motor frame, and the main part of the chassis, and into one of these little red standoffs. So they're not long enough. That or the landing gear is too thick or something. And again, I'm just looking at images off of AliExpress's site here, and that's kind of how I'm going through. So I still don't even know how to throw this the electronics in. I can't seem to find where they mount to the frame. Yeah, so it's not the most fun build I've ever done. Mind you, this is my first quad build. Anyways, so stay tuned. Again, yeah, had to drill these out with a 15/64 drill bit so that I'm able to countersink the head of those screws so they go deep enough into the standoffs to actually catch and tighten. That's where I'm at so far. Well, folks, I've got the landing gear put together with the bottom side of the chassis. Ooh, fancy. Pretty cool looking. I don't really know what size this frame is. I guess I could measure it and let you guys know. I'll put it in the description. But there's the start to this AliExpress quad. And there it is. There's my building instructions. Pretty sweet. Alright, so not having the most fun with this build, like I was saying before. The ESCs do not fit in between like they're supposed to. They're supposed to fit right in here, and they don't. So I've come up with a maybe solution. I tried to route my wires kind of, let's see if I can get this to focus here. There we go. I tried to route my wires kind of as neat and cool as I could think of. And that stays out of the way of the propeller. And so the original photos that I had from AliExpress showed that the bottom part of the arms was pinched between the landing gear and the main part of the frame here. That was incorrect, so I switched it over. What else can I find? There's not really any way of attaching this little power distribution board anywhere. It does sit in an angle, in the frame on an angle, sorry. And haven't figured out a way to attach it to the frame yet, but I'm going to figure that out. Now, the seller from AliExpress, I forget his name now, sent me a video, or a link to a video on YouTube, and I guess this is actually the build video, but it seems to still be a little bit different from the model that I have, or things are different somehow. Because his ESCs, you can see right here, they fit in the frame, so they're nice and protected. Somehow his power board is fixed, and it didn't show any way of fastening that to the chassis or anything. So I'm figuring this out. I guess maybe I'll have to use 2-way tape or some kind of 3M foam tape, or I don't know. I'll figure something out, I guess, but this is where I'm at so far, is routing these wires and making sure that my ESCs stay somehow protected. Alright, so you can see now that I have my arms put back together, my ESCs all twisted, and keeping those wires as neat as possible. I really wish they fit in that little space in between the arms, but it is what it is, I guess. So I have them zip tied. All my wires are kind of the same there. Routed them in through there. There we go. Kept them as neat as possible. There's lots of wire. I might end up just cutting all these short and soldering directly to it. The motors to the ESCs, just to save some wire and some weight and so on. But yeah, still at her. Still trying to figure this out as I go. Getting somewhere now though. All right, now to assemble the folding GPS signal receiver, for lack of a better term, I guess. What do you call it? This thing here, the little round dude. It's the GPS, right there, GPS unit, I guess we'll call it. To assemble the folding stand for it, it comes with a fiberglass rod. It's got this little star-shaped tilting device. It's got the pad for something nice and hard and flat to stick to, because there's a two-way tape, some 3M tape on the back of the GPS. So what I did here was I installed my set screw into the platform first. Careful, these things are super small, and I believe they are a 1.5 millimeter Allen key or hex. I installed the set screw into the part that attaches to the fiberglass rod, and then there's a hex screw that goes in through there to allow this to rotate. And that's where I'm at so far. And then once I figure out how to install it on the drone, I will show you how I did that. Alright, so you can see here that I've got it put together. This thing goes on the shaft first, because that's what's going to lock it in place when you have it erect, up and down. So when you're not using it for transport, you can flop it down, and then put it up, and then you twist that so it stays nice and rigid. That way you don't doesn't flop over or change where your GPS location is. Alright, so the GPS is installed. You want to take note that there is an arrow for forward. You want to get that as close to straight as possible. Ooh, come on, baby. You want to get that as close to straight as possible. You can see the arrow there. There we go. Now it's time for the flight controller. So I have the GPS plugged in. There's the flight controller, the Ardu pilot. Probably end up doing something cool with this wire. Maybe just some zip ties or some black tape or something, or we'll see. But I'll clean that up before all said and done. So that's where I'm at now. Keep watching. Alright, so in order to make this power distribution board, for lack of a better term, stay still and be fixed to the chassis of this quad, I've taken my 7/64 drill bit, because that fits the size of the screw, and there's little slots underneath here. Let's see. All I did was widen up that slot and make it nice and round for the provided screws to grab onto that to the chassis. At least that's going to hold the power board from slopping around inside that frame, because there's no other way other than using maybe a two-sided tape or something, and I didn't want to use that. So anyways, that's where that is, and I think I have figured out, but obviously testing will tell, figured out the receiver and the flight controller based on this video that I was sent by the seller. I have one wire mixing channel 1, 2, and 3 on the top here. Let's see. So you can see there's 3 sets of pins. And it's on the top set of pins on 1, 2, and 3. And that's channel 1, 2, and 3 on the receiver. And then I have channel 4 and 5 going up and down across all 3 of those pins. And like I said, that's kind of what I was able to pick out from this. Kind of looks the same as his. He's got, fortunately, a FlySky FSI6, same as I do. And here is my receiver. And that just corresponds with what's on the flight controller. So channels 1, 2, and 3 mixed on the top pins, and then channels 4 and 5 going through all 3 pins. So this is where I've gotten so far. It's all a learning experiment for me, especially kind of doing this without any kind of help. So anyways, stay tuned. All right, folks, check that out. So I've got my flight controller mounted. See how it says forward, GPS says forward. I've got my blades on correctly because, as you can see in this diagram, with this being the front of the quad, you've got motor 1, motor 2, 3, and 4. So we've got counterclockwise on motor 1, clockwise on motor 3. Those are your 2 front motors. Motor 2 is counterclockwise and motor 4 is clockwise. And those are your back 2 motors. So that's how I have mine hooked up. You can see here. So motor 1, pretty fun running these wires, I'll tell you. Motor 1, front right. Check that out, motor 1. And you can see where that one's plugged in is right there. Tug that wire, there's motor 1. Motor 3. You can see that wire there. It's plugged into slot number 3 on the output. Motor 4. You can see that one getting pulled. And motor 2. Second slot. So now I don't know what this telemetry one is. You can see this slot down here. It says telem. Or any of the other slots with the USB and all that kind of fancy stuff is, but I'm sure I'll figure it all out at some point because I'm getting there. Quads together. I guess now I can plug it in. Plug some power to it and see what happens. I'm gonna have to program this flight controller. Hopefully I can find a video on YouTube or somewhere how to control or how to program this Ardu pilot. And there's my FSIA6 receiver. And I have that just 2-sided taped on the front of the chassis. Mine's backwards from the one that the seller supplied me, from the video that the seller supplied me there. They have their GPS unit going forward at the front of the quad. I kind of like the idea of it going backwards. It's just another visual reference for forward and reverse for me. Anyways, red blades up front and the GPS in the back. So that's what I've got so far. Now this video didn't really explain too much as to how to plug and where to plug it. It actually fast forwarded through all the sections where I think it would be most necessary to see a video. Anyways, I'm going to attempt to program this and hopefully I don't screw it up. Alright, so here I am fighting with this Ardu Pilot APM 2.8. It's not calibrating properly for whatever reason. Here I am on YouTube. I want to put a shout out to this Painless 360 guy. Puts up really good videos how to program these, and just really straightforward, really clear directions. Gotta thank this guy. But unfortunately, nothing for troubleshooting. Here I am on my Mission Planner 1.3.35. And I've got nothing going on. What is happening here is I'm going and clicking this live calibration and everything's going well, and then automatically I get compass 1 error 99. Now this is where I should be moving this thing all over the place, gathering data and basically building its world, and it's not happening. So I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go from here.